Welcome to the channel, Budget Audio Review and Upgrades. Today is a recap of the Celestion Ditton CS5 speakers, which I bought a little while ago. A video at the top giving you that review there, rather than me waffling on telling you all about them. That's the video there. If you want to go and watch that review, then maybe come back to this, etc. In that review I'll tell you how I got them, etc. and all that. Wanted to recap them because a bloke called Kevin from Ditton Works, I'll link down below again to his channel, well worth a visit, knows these Celestions inside out really, and he knows a lot about other speakers as well, some general tips about repairing them, all different things, some tests, etc. So well worth a visit, you know, get your subs up, etc. You know, he's very knowledgeable. He come round and auditioned these when I actually bought them. He actually put me onto these, and he said the tweeter was a little bit like a bit shy, should be a little bit, you know, turn the old treble up 2 notches on your amp, and that's where it should be. So he said these would be worth a recap. Anyway, I'll give them a try as they were. And I generally like the sound of them. They sounded okay. As I say, that review will tell you a bit more. The mid-range was a little bit shouty as the volume went up, a little bit shouty. So if I could kind of tone that down a bit, that'd be great. The tweeter was a little bit shy, so if I could bring that up, that'd be fantastic. And the bass unit was okay. It was a little bit thuddy at times. So if I could kind of get rid of that thuddness, that'd be fantastic as well. So, you know, this is the idea. Things don't always work out like that, obviously, like, you know what I mean? But if it was like a magic thing, you could wave a wand and do all them 3 things. These are, you know, these sound really, really, really good kind of thing. So I've had to get myself some capacitors to recap these with. I went on a website that was all in stock, but as soon as I ordered them, and it was actually going to get shipped out to me, apparently a few of them suddenly went out of stock, even though they said they had them in stock. And not all the values exactly what I wanted. You know, it was hard getting exact values here. These crossover in each speaker takes 5 capacitors each. So I'll tell you a little bit about, you'll see a video of me actually measuring them and all that, but just going to tell you what I had to go for so you know where I was. Now the original, like I say, it's got 5 capacitors, a 4.7 microfarad capacitor. I've got a Mundell 4.7, no problem. They're all Mundell and they're all within 5% tolerance in the end. You can go down as low as 1, but there's a bit of confusion, like I say, out of stock stuff and that. In the end, all 5% I got. Yeah, 4.7. I managed to get a 4.7. There's a 10 microfarad in here. Managed to get a 10 microfarad. There's a 16 microfarad in here. Now I could only get a 15 microfarad. There's a 40 microfarad. Now I could not get a 40 microfarad, so I had to use 2 82 microfarad capacitors and wire them in series to get 41 microfarads in theory. You'll see the video as it goes along anyway. And there's a 22 microfarad capacitor in here. Sorry, a 12 microfarad. Sorry, a 12 microfarad capacitor in here. Could not get a 12. I could have went to a 10, but that would have been 2 microfarads out. So I've got 2 22 microfarad capacitors, wired them in series again to make 11 microfarads in theory. So like I say, the video as it goes along will tell you a little bit about it. Now I measured all these capacitors that I bought and the ones I took out. I measured them, and the little meter I used here is called a TC1. It's only a little meter, a little testing meter. This measures capacitors, resistors, transistors, diodes, etc. It's fairly accurate, I think. You know, I mean, it's got reviews on the internet and everything, but it could be slightly out. That's all I'm saying. So, you know, it could be very slightly out. But other than that, I think it's pretty good. So anyway, just thought I'd let you know what I'm actually measuring with. Nothing really fancy or technical. A pretty cheap little unit that's about £15 or £16, $15 or $16. Okay, so I'm going to show you these videos. What I'm going to do, I'm going to show you now a video of me taking them apart and recapping them and going through that little bit. Then I'm going to show you a video of me, like the actual sound of how they sounded, and just come back to me for my final thoughts of how I actually thought they sounded. Like I say, it's hard to get the actual, I've got, you know, when I've done the sound test on these, I'll come back to that in a minute. Let's just show you a video of me actually taking these apart. Okay, there's the speaker on the table, so I'll give myself plenty of room on the table there. Quite a large speaker, so you need a fairly big work surface. So the first thing I took out was the bass speaker. Just made a note where the positive wire, the green wire there, with a little positive dot there. Then onto the tweeter, pretty much the same. The red wire is the positive. Then onto the mid-range, the orange wire is the positive in this case. And actually both speakers are different. They've got different coloured wires for both crossovers in these 2 speakers. So most speakers are exactly the same. For some reason, these Dittons must have had a load of spare wires, all different colours, etc. I don't know, but each speaker cabinet had different colour wires going to different speakers. I'm just showing you this one particular one. Okay, so there's the actual crossover board bolted down to the cabinet, and as you can see, the red circle indicates where the 2 wires go into the tweeter. That's just held in by it, and actually it's gone really dry and pretty loose. So I took that out, I will be replacing that with a bit of filling myself, just to fill that, a bit of glue or something just to put in there to make sure that's nice and tight. So there's the crossover. Got to undo these 3 bolts. I've already undone the top bolt and just put nuts, should I say, and the 2 bottom nuts come undone, and once they've undone, that's the unit actually out of the cabinet. And as you can see, that little thing to the left hand side is like a bit of blue tack or something they use, but it's gone rock hard now. So there's the circuit board of the actual crossover. As you can see, Celestion, made in England, SP3340 issue 1. Okay, so here's the 4.7 microfarad that was in this particular speaker, and it measured 6598 nanofarads, so 6.59 microfarads. Unfortunately, I haven't got the one I replaced it with to show you a picture of that and what it actually read, but it's supposed to be a 4.7. It was pretty nearly bang on. It weren't far out. I know that. I was already obviously noticed and mentioned it, so that you know, it's just a picture I can't show you. I did take a picture of it. Well, I thought I did, and obviously I didn't. Right, okay, now onto the 10 microfarad. The old one in this particular speaker, that measured 12.34, and in the other speaker it measured 12.62. So here's the one I'm going to replace. I'm replacing it with a new 10 microfarad capacitor. This measured 11.52, and I think the other one measured pretty much nearly the same. So now we go on to the 12 microfarad capacitor, and as you can see in this case it measured 15.70, so it's over 3 microfarads out. So what I've had to do here, because I couldn't get a 12 microfarad capacitor, I actually got two 22 microfarad capacitors. Opening 2 of these in series would come up at about 11 microfarads and be 1 microfarad out. But as luck would have it, these 2 in series measures 12.34 microfarads, so just 0.34 microfarads out to spec, so to speak. So that's pretty pleasing. Here you can see the old 16 microfarad capacitor, and as you can see, this one measured 19.2 microfarad in this speaker. In the other speaker it measured 20.91 microfarad, so that was over 4 microfarads out in the other speaker. So I'll replace this with a 15 microfarad capacitor. That's all I could get hold of, so expecting it to be 1 microfarad out, but as it happens it measures 17.76, so it brought us in a bit nearer to what it should have been. And then on the other new one it was pretty much the same. It was very, very close to each other. You know, just a small pointage out. Unfortunately, I only took 1 picture of these. I didn't take 2 pictures, and I didn't actually write down the other values, but they was very close. Okay, going on to the 40 microfarad capacitor, and in this speaker it measured 47.75 microfarads, and in the other speaker, where are it measured 48.26 microfarads. So I'll replace this with 2 82 microfarad capacitors, putting them in series, open to get 41 microfarads. You know, bringing it up to nearly 40 that it should be, and in this case these 2 in series measured 43.63 microfarads. So that's all the capacitors and measurements there. Always best really to apply the soldering iron directly onto the solder wheel on the board rather than using the braid first like I did here. So you know, doing the video and that, you seem to forget these things as you go along, but anyway, there's the solder coming off anyway. But yeah, just try and, you know, put the soldering iron actually on the solder joint first of all before using the braid. It just loosens up that solder that's been on there for years. Yeah, completely forgot to do that because I was setting up the camera doing the video, and always a bit of pressure. This is the first, you know, I'm doing it as it is. If I make mistakes then obviously you're going to see them, which I did there. This is the first component I took off the board, the first capacitor, and as you can see, you know, sometimes it takes a few little bits of the soldering iron, a few more using the braid, whatever, just to get the bit off. I'm not too bothered about how much heat I put on here really. This is a 60 watt iron. Other stuff I usually use a 30 watt iron. You know, a lot of pressure on here I'm putting. I'm not too bothered because these parts are no good. They're coming off. And obviously if you're taking a part off and you're going to use it again, just be a bit careful, you know, how much heat you actually apply to it, etc. Or if, you know, if it's a small track, these are really big tracks, you know, the track don't start lifting up, which it can do, so just be a little bit careful there. There you can see, just giving it a little quick clean with the iron there to make sure all the solder's nice and spread there evenly. And just going to put the new capacitor in there. I'm not too sure what capacitor this is. It looks like it's the 4.7 microfarad. I could be wrong. I can't remember, to be honest with you, offhand. But anyway, like I say, I rushed this a little bit. It's been on camera. Just take your time bending these in position. You know, make it as neat as possible. I suppose that's what I'm saying. I kind of just thought, put the thing in there. Could have done it a little bit neater, but there you go. Anyway, it does the job. You're not going to see it. It's inside the unit anyway. So yeah, basically that's it. Obviously I do exactly the same for all the other components and all the other capacitors, and you know, exactly the same for the other board in the other speaker. So yeah, just applying the solder there. Try not to leave it on too long now, because this is actually a new part and obviously I want this to work. I let it just cool down a little bit there. I could have taken a little bit longer to let it cool down before I actually snip these pins. But there you go, that's the first capacitor on that board. Right, that was me taking them apart and replacing the capacitors. I could have took a little bit more time. I did rush. I seem to rush things sometimes when it's on camera, etc. But it's in there. It's fairly neat inside, etc. So it's all been recapped. Now, another few little problems. There's always little problems turning up. Is that I chose a track of music to do the first test, so to speak, with the speakers as they were before the recap. This is a YouTube library track. And after doing it again, after recapping them and playing back again, I thought maybe I should have chose a different track, a bit more like treble in it, etc. To kind of give an idea how the treble sounded. I should have maybe chose a different track. But the trouble is, I chose that track. I took a recording of it before the recap, and obviously I've got to play the same track back, otherwise there's no comparison. So let's play that track. Also in that track you'll see that it says before and after underneath the video. And what it is, I didn't bother showing you the video. The room was pretty much exactly the same. Everything was exactly the same. I think the curtains may have been slightly less drawn than what they were as you're going to see here. But other than that, it's exactly the same. The speakers, the table, the recording equipment that I use, that little Tascam thing I use, everything was in exactly the same position. When I say exactly the same, maybe a millimetre or two out, but I do measure it with a ruler to make it as fair as possible. It's no good having the speakers a foot over one side for one recording, a foot over the other side for the other recording, the mic a foot near and all that, etc. What you will notice is that on the recap, once they've been recapped, it just sounds a little bit lower, and that's how it was. It was just slightly lower, but that's exactly how the speakers were. So anyway, here's a little test demo. Right, so you've heard the demo there. Maybe you've got to put headphones in or something. Hopefully it's come across. It's also, you know, it's difficult sometimes on YouTube. Obviously I've not got the top of the range of recording equipment or anything like that. Before I go on, I will say the recap cost me just over £40 here in the UK. That's just over £40 for the recap. Some of them might have doubled up on, as you know, capacitors. I put 2 in series twice. So if you manage to get the exact values and you haven't got 5 capacitors in your crossover, that's going to bring the cost down. So was it worth the effort? Was it worth that £40? Well, I think the answer is yes. Hopefully you can hear that in that recording. Like I said, I didn't really choose the best of tracks there. But what I will, I'll go through how it actually changed the speaker. Like I say, listening to a variety of music on different amplifiers, etc. Obviously that demo was done on the Sansui AU101 amplifier. The treble, we'll start off with the treble. Now, Ditton Works said it should be 2 notches on your amplifier. What I would say is that it's brought the treble probably 1 notch. It's definitely brought it 1 notch. I don't think it's quite brought it at 2 notches, maybe where it should be, but it's made it better. It's a bit more treble to it. It's a bit more higher end. It just sounds a little bit nicer. It sounds a bit nicer there. I mean, it sounded nice as it was, but it just sounds a bit more nicer. So yeah, it's improved the treble. That's improved. So I'm pleased about that. The mid-range, well, that doesn't shout nowhere near as much as it used to. That's come right down there. That shoutiness. It's brought the mid-range down. It sounds more nicer now than what it did to. So that's that's 2 great results there straight away. It's kind of balanced that speaker up. As you can see, some of them values are quite a bit out, and when you kind of like putting different values on different parts of the crossover and all that, it's bringing it into line to where it should be. So 2 great results there. And as for the bass here, that thuddiness has gone. That's gone. The trouble is, it's just I've lost a little bit more of the bass. It's a little bit of bass missing. I'm not too worried about it, to be honest with you. I just lost a little bit more than maybe what I wanted. That fuddiness has gone. It just took a little bit more bass with it as well. Just a little bit. Hardly anything, to be honest with you. But I just wanted a little bit more bass there. But the fuddiness has gone, so that's nice. That's nice. The bass sounds, it sounded clear. It sounded nice before. Just a little bit of thuddiness, like I say, would creep in now and again. It's just a little bit bass shy. Just a little bit, to what it used to be, like I say, with that fuddiness. So that is the thing. But overall, the old speaker, it sounded cleaner. It definitely sounded, even though it sounded nice before, it sounded cleaner. It sounded a little bit more area as well. It sounded a little bit more area, a little bit more spacious, a little bit more area there. It sounded like, if you could kind of imagine, like say that bass, when the geezer was thudding with a stick, he was banging that stick down on the drum, it's giving it more finesse, like, it's not so much of a whack on the drum. It kind of felt like that. It's kind of like trying to explain how it felt here. Hopefully that's come across a little bit in that video, where we would be whacking that sound, even though you maybe not be doing that in actual recording. It felt like he was whacking that drum, and now it feels like he's not putting so much. It's more of a nice, smoother finesse kind of it than whacking it kind of thing. That's kind of like trying to explain how that drum. But other than that, this speaker sounds nicer. It really does. It sounds cleaner. Everything sounds more detailed. It's like a bit more detailed, because it's quite nicely detailed as it was. A little bit more detailed, but it just felt area. And it, airness to it, and it just felt more cleaner. It kind of cleaned up a bit, like, a little bit more sparkle, a little bit more cleanliness to it. It just felt a cleaner sound was coming out of the speakers. That is really how I could describe it. So, was it worth the £40? And the time really come into it. Didn't really take that long. The £40 investment. Well, it's got to be a yes. £40, and you kind of give your speakers a spring clean, you've gone over with a duster and took all the grime and dirt off, so to speak, even though they sounded pretty good, I must be honest, they sounded pretty good before that, they just sound a lot better now, they do sound a lot better, as you can see. I'm fairly pleased with them now, these are a nice little speaker, and they sound quite nice, and yeah, I'm really pleased with the outcome. So hopefully that's come across in that little demos, that soundtrack I'll give you there. Yeah, I say the only thing I would take back is maybe just lost a little bit of that bass, maybe just wanted a tad more, but I'm not going to complain, because you're not going to get a speaker that's going to do everything right, like, so all in all, it's a great result, I think, so if you've got a speaker that's 40 or 50 years old, it could be well worth maybe recapping it, like, giving it a recap. And obviously if you don't like the sound that's coming out of it afterwards, keep the old caps. You can always put them back in again, and then you're back to square one, especially if you've only got to buy 1 or 2 capacitors for the speaker rather than 5 or 6 for each one, and then you've got to double up on some of them, and it starts working out maybe a bit too much than you want to spend. Okay, so hopefully you like that video. Until the next one, I'll say thanks for watching, and I'll see you all soon.